Alright, here's the problem. You're Gen X. You've survived Reaganomics, AIDS, the dot-com crash, 9/11, 2008, pandemic, and you're exhausted. Scrolling, feeling lost, maybe done, overdone, fucked over. Like our brains are toast. You've got more information than any generation in history, and yet life feels like we're stuck in traffic. We can't see where the problem is, and nothing is moving. And more importantly, how did we get to this? Today, I'm going to give you the framework to think your way into a different future, and then challenge you to act on that awareness. Welcome back to GenX-Xpat. I'm Island Punk. I am in my Flintstone living room again today, and I went through the process of dissecting my life and finding a way through the problems that were sinking me financially and physically, so that I could reorder my life to be worth living again. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why Gen X brains are built for this moment. Yes, I believe that. Using something called Bloom's taxonomy, I'm going to give you a practical framework for thinking about the challenges in your life so you can navigate what comes next. So let's go. So I've been asking myself this question lately. What has made Gen X thinking so different, so pragmatic, so weirdly adaptable? Was it how we were raised? A perspective maybe we stumbled into? Because I think the answer to that question might be the key to unlocking what comes next for us. And right now, we really need that solution. Because we're not retirement age yet, but we're old enough to see retirement from here. And that retirement picture doesn't look like anything that we envisioned. So how do we deal with that? And here's what's messing with me. Why has knowing so much stuff solved exactly none of our problems? Let me walk you through the unique Gen X experience using Bloom's taxonomy, a framework for thinking. And stay with me. I promise this is going somewhere. So the first level of thinking is your basic recall. Gen X has mastered that by 6th grade. We memorized phone numbers, addresses, bus schedules, song lyrics, multiplication tables, manual typing, music scales, all of it by middle school. That's the lowest level of thinking, simple recall, and we were done with it before we hit high school. Sadly, as a retired teacher though, I see the deficits from the lack of memory skills in students today. So, the second level of thinking, level 2, is understanding. Can you explain how to do something? That's easy. Gen X has handled tasks way too young in some cases. But we did it anyway. We could follow a recipe, cook our own food, read the VCR manual, yes, the whole manual, and explain it to our parents. We did basic programming on a Commodore 64. We could read a book and actually explain what it meant. Kids do some of these skills today, but the default now is to Google it first. Our default was to figure it out first. The next level of thinking is level 3, applying our knowledge, which is where Gen X shines. We figured out where we were going. We figured out chemistry and darkroom photography. We completed sewing projects and woodworking. And at home, we had to evaluate our parents' moods before making requests because, they were inconsistent, and the consequences to talking to them on any given day could be disastrous. So we had to have basic understanding, applied critical thinking. You can't just do whatever you want without thinking about it. By high school, we were thinking at a cultural level because of shows like SNL and The Simpsons, showing political satire that required us to already know what they were talking about in order to understand. We weren't passive consumers of the culture. We were active decoders of the culture. Okay, so the next thinking levels 4 and 5 are evaluating and judging, which is often a problem right now. And we did it 20 years ago much differently. We evaluated and judged politics and culture together with other people. It was not in an echo chamber. We got together in person with beer and barbecue and neighbors and kids in the background and Dire Straits on the stereo. We socialized with our neighbors who were often the opposite of us. And we argued about it for hours and showed respect and ate and went our separate ways and showed up again. We debated the AIDS crisis with them, trickle-down economics, the Cold War, whether we should climb the corporate ladder or work for ourselves, whether the park fees were basically a tax, which I think is still true. We argued about recycling. We knew we weren't going to solve these problems, but we argued about it anyway because it was fun and dynamic and something to do on a Saturday. And out of all of that, we built grunge. Do-it-yourself culture. We figured out the internet as it was being invented, and we used to stay relevant at work. So, with all this mental horsepower, why are so many of us quietly quitting, stagnating, sliding into a kind of career nihilism that nothing feels worth doing? Here's what I think happened. Somewhere along the line, we stopped being creators of our own experience and became consumers of cheap illusions. The consumer economy has taken over, of course, and the result has been burnout and poor health and a level of dissatisfaction that I know I couldn't admit to. I just drank instead of admitting how terribly unhappy I was. I made my choices. I do not blame anybody but for me. But I do think the attention economy has made it extremely difficult to think independently. And I think that the solution, the actual solution, is to go back to the thinking skills we already know how to use and actually use them. So let's apply this framework to our lives right now. Money is a problem, but we need the real facts to be identified. Not what somebody else is telling us about our money, but what is really the problem. So identify your actual facts, your numbers, your debt to income, your total assets, your cost of living. What do you need to simply survive? I had to ask myself that in order to make those changes. Not what some financial influencer says that I need to have so that I will be comfortable. Understand your numbers and your life and your priorities. And understand the system you're living in. The attention economy isn't selling you facts. It's selling you emotional engagement. Anxiety is the result and the reason to continue to give it your attention. Once you see that, you can start asking why, and don't stop asking why until you find the answer. So here's an example. Why do I have to keep working? Answer: to pay the mortgage. Why? Answer: so I can retire mortgage free. Why is that important? So that I don't have debt. Okay, what about HOA, insurance, upkeep, taxes? Who actually benefits from me continuing to work? Who benefits from me growing that retirement fund? Understanding means questioning the assumptions that keep you stuck. Maybe they're good assumptions, maybe they're not, but you deserve to actually know. And do a lifestyle audit. Look at what you're spending money on to cope with your life. Because here's the thing, if your life wasn't making you miserable, you wouldn't need to spend money to cope. Now apply what you know. Stop engaging in political debates that leave you filled with rage and nothing else. That's not thinking, that's just inflammation. Do a cost-benefit analysis on your actual choices. Imagine the life you want and write down what it costs, and then compare it to what you have and what you currently pay. I did this before I became an expat. I got clear on what I wanted. I wanted a peaceful environment. I wanted a safe environment. I wanted affordable health care. Once I realized it was possible, actually possible, I put together a plan and stuck to it. I knew what I was giving up, and I was okay with that. That's the next step. Analyze and evaluate. Once you have your information and you understand it, you can analyze and evaluate your circumstances. Break down the problem into pieces and create a plan of action with a timeline. Separate what you can control from what you can't. You can control applying for a passport. You can't control how much it costs. Work the controllables. Spend your emotional energy on the controllables. On a quick side note, it's not a good idea to rush the evaluation phase. I missed a bonus deadline by a week because I wasn't sure, and I couldn't get sure until I was. And then once I was sure, I moved forward. Go in the order that it needs for you. And finally, create. Before you make any decision, create a space to record your thinking, a journal or a document. My journaling during that time was mostly questions and answers and raw emotions. And my journal was a better listener than family and friends, because unlike them, my journal didn't have a stake in my decision making. So here's the bottom line. Gen X spent our formative years building serious cognitive muscle. Recall, understanding, application, analysis, evaluation, and creation. We didn't do it just in classrooms. We did it in garages, in kitchens, in barbecues, and in the dark, watching the news and knowing something was really off. The problem is that we lost those skills. We put them away. We stopped using them. And we let the consumption economy do our thinking for us. The solution is simple. Not easy, but simple. That's what this channel is about. I'm Island Punk. I retired at 58. I left the US and started this channel to have exactly this conversation about what retirement without $1 million can look like, what life outside the US political machine could mean, and what it looks like to actually think your way into a different future. If that resonates with you, subscribe. It keeps us going. If you want to support the work, there's a link to buy me a coffee and my Substack in the description. And my Substack goes deeper into all this on a daily basis. I've also put a free PDF below that breaks down Bloom's taxonomy with specific activities you could use today, plus a video pinned in the comments with more on this topic. Until next time, lead, follow,